We're so excited to have you here today. I'm just letting it, we've got over 250 people signed up for this meeting. Woohoo, go LA County, you guys are amazing. And on a Monday morning, no less, so welcome. We'll just wait a couple more minutes as people are coming in. Great to see so many wonderful faces and in your homes or wherever else you're working.
Hello, I can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
I see some nods, face nods. So one thing, if you could, if we are going to start with a bit of presentations, I'm going to hand it to Gustavo. And Jade Alicia from Californians for the Arts is going to run this wonderful little thing to give you an idea of what we're doing here this morning. But if you, until we get to the true conversation part, if you could mute so that we don't hear everyone's, chewing or whatever else we might be doing in our home offices, that would be terrific. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Gustavo.
Great. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, good morning. Buenos dias all. Happy Monday to everyone. I want to welcome everybody to Californians for the Arts Regional Conversations. My name is Gustavo Herrera. I'm the Executive Director of Arts for LA and also board member of Californians for the Arts. Today's event was organized by the incredible LA board leaders of Californians for the Arts, and I want to take a moment to just shout out some of our board leaders. Leticia Buckley, Sophia Klatzker, Keisha Dumas, Tomas Benitez, and Michael Alexander. I want to thank you all for your tremendous leadership, and thank you for all the work that went into putting this regional convening together. I also want to emphasize that today we have many board members who represent large institutions, and many of the folks who are speaking today are speaking on an individual basis and not necessarily representative of their institutions. So very quickly, I want to share with you an overview of the purpose of these regional conversations. The purpose is really threefold. We want to ensure that we are cultivating a stronger region to state coalition and exchange of ideas. For Californians for the Arts and like Arts for LA, community listening is very, very important to the work that we do, and ensuring that we as advocates are being responsive to your community voices and the region's specific issues. This is also a very, very key purpose of these conversations. And I think the third thing I want to emphasize is this is an ongoing conversation. And this is the first of many conversations. And it's important for Californians for the Arts to have touch points with our community of arts advocates so we can be as best of representative of you and our regional needs in our advocacy and policy initiatives. So again, this is the first of 9 regional conversations that are happening. Julie has actually another convening at 1 o'clock today and many others throughout the week. So the Californians for the Arts team will be very, very busy in every single region of California. So with that, I want to just take a second to share a couple of things. One is some housekeeping. I want to ensure that, if you have any questions or if you want to share something, to please click the participants button at the bottom of the screen, select the raise hand option, and then Californians for the Arts, Jade Alyssa, will note that you have raised your hand, and they'll indicate when you're up for speak or when it's your turn to speak. With that said, let's get right into it. I want to give you an overview of what you can expect today. You'll have 5 what we call advocacy landscape sprints. You'll hear from 5 speakers beginning with Julie Baker, Executive Director of Californians for the Arts, followed by Jason Schmelzer, who is partner at SYA, followed by Kristen Sakota, who is our director for LA County Department of Arts and Culture, and then follow that with Danielle Brazel, LA City, General Manager of LA City Department of Cultural Affairs. And I will share a quick update on the Los Angeles regional overview following Danielle. And then we will go right into the community listening portion of the event, which this is the most important component of today's program, is that listening component. And so we will move very quickly over the next, we'll have 5-minute presentations from each of the speakers, and then we will end the presentation portion of this by around 10:30, 10:35, and leave the remainder of the time for the community listening. And again, this is a 75-minute session. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Julie Baker, Executive Director of Californians for the Arts, to start us off with a federal advocacy update.
Thanks, Gustavo, and thanks again to the wonderful board members from LA County and to Danielle and to Kristen for joining us here on this Monday morning. And yes, thankfully, I'm originally from New York, so I'm a fast speaker. My son has done debate, so I've learned how to do where you speak really quickly and you get your point across. So here we go. Ready? Start. So I've got 10 minutes actually, but I'll try to make it even faster because I'm going to do a federal and state report. I also just wanted to quickly highlight again why these conversations are so critical for us. You know, this is a state of, I'm not going to have to remind you this, of 40 million people. We are the only comprehensive state advocacy organization. There are others in our world, thankfully, CAM, which for museums, AXO for symphony orchestras, California Alliance for Arts Educators, Cal Presenters specifically for presenters, and then Create California, which is a coalition also for arts education. So there's a lot of us out here in the state, but we're the only one kind of with the big picture of it all for arts and culture. So for us to be able to do that effectively in a state that is pretty much a small country, we really have to build it into smaller regions. So we started with LA County, the largest region, 25% of the state. We're so grateful that so many of you are here. Our job is partly to be conveners, it's to be coalition builders, it's to be aggregators of content, to work on a policy that helps to access resources and funding for arts, and legislation that's going to serve and protect arts and culture workers, arts organizations, particularly with a lens on the nonprofit sector. I'm the federal captain to Americans for the Arts. So I spend about now within the world of COVID, about 2 hours minimum a week on calls with Americans for the Arts. The federal landscape changes by the second, basically. So I keep looking at my phone to get updates on what's happening right now. As you know, they're negotiating between the Heroes and Heals Act for our second economic stimulus package. The major difference between the Heroes and Heals has funding for the states, which we all know, Danielle, Kristen, Gustavo, myself, everyone who's here in advocacy understands in lobbying how critical it is that we get funding back to the states, that's how we then get it into our cities and counties. There's a lot that I can unpack on the Heroes and Heals Act that will tell you the differences between the two. I can also tell you what we focus on in terms of arts advocacy and what we're looking for. The big piece that we're also looking for is a second round of PPP. Just to give you a quick idea on the PPP thus far from Americans for the Arts, of the 4.9 million PPP loans, 173,000 made it to arts creative businesses worth 13.7 billion. Which preserved 1.1 million jobs. So a lot of times we hear about, oh, Germany is putting forward this much billions in art and for arts, the arts sector, in England, 2 billion. The way that our federal government is slicing it right now is less with fewer line items for specific industries and more through these kind of programs like PPP. Of the 173,000 loans that were made to the creative sector, about 9,900 went to nonprofit arts and 163,000 went to for-profit arts. Because as we remember, when we talk about the creative economy and as the Otis report and others, that is not just the nonprofit arts and culture sector. the creative economy is everyone from an arts and culture worker on up to Disney, which of course includes arts and culture workers. So it's really the whole landscape that we do look at in terms of what we determine is the creative economy. There's also, of course, I hope a lot of people have been able to access those PPP funds. There's still money left in that. We hope for that second round that would likely go to those who are the most vulnerable, which of course is going to be our sector because we are not able to gather. There's a lot that I can go through with the federal landscape. It's pretty tough to do that in just a couple of minutes. I'm happy to answer more questions on what's going on there. You'll also note that there have been a number of things that we put out there about the Restart Act and the Save Our Stages Act. The Save Our Stages Act, which was brought forward by NEVA, which is a National Independent Venues Association group, which just formed in the since March because their venues have all shut down. They've got a lobbyist. They've been working really hard. They've gotten bipartisan support. And this is specifically would give monies to nonprofit venues as well as city-owned venues and independent venues across the U.S. to get loans up to $12 million based on how much revenue loss. So there's some really good components to Save Our Stages. Less likely in this landscape, especially if they're going to try and get something done in the next week, that you will see. I mean, it could happen. I don't know, but it's less likely you'll see a line item or a specific act like SOS, Save Our Stages. But what we hope will happen is it gets incorporated into that economic relief and the second stimulus. So those are the sort of things that go on at the federal level. There's a lot happening. There's a lot of people entering the lobbying landscape at the federal level. And there's a lot of separate campaigns like Save Our Stages, like Be an Art Hero, a lot of different things that we can put out there. Oh boy, I can't do this in 1 minute. I've already spoken for 9 minutes. No, that's not possible. Have I? Jade, Alicia, have I really spoken for 9 minutes? Okay, quickly on the state front, immediately we went to work to protect the California Arts Council budget, which is a state arts agency that has been protected at ongoing funds of $26 million. We've been advocating also to the state arts agency to make sure that they get those funds out quickly, that they switch to a lot more general operating support, and that we see funding for artists. And we're happy that they've released a fund, specifically $1 million fund that is through the Center for Cultural Innovation, CCI. We hope that you check that out. We are also working on trying to get a private match for that $1 million to expand that fund because the demand is huge, as you can imagine. We're also working on jobs creation for the creative sector, there's some good news on the task force, the Jobs and Economic Recovery Task Force that Governor Newsom put together, headed up by Tom Steyer. When he first put it together with 80 people, there was nobody from the nonprofit arts and culture sector. And we now have Deborah Cullinan from YBCA on there. We work with her on a weekly basis. We're also working on a statewide convening that the task force is now interested in being a part of, which is fantastic news. And there was just released by the state a $100 billion economic stimulus package concept. And we're also working with Cal nonprofits and other advocacy organizations to make sure that we are including the state advocacy, including arts and culture in there. Okay, this is the, are you saying I did my 10 minutes?
You're done, you're cooked.
Okay, well, there's no way I could give you everything. So we'll go to other people and then you can ask me questions, but there's a lot more to say. Okay, I'll stop.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm going to head over to Jason. Jason Smelter is a lobbyist for California Arts Advocates, which is our C4. He works out of Sacramento for Shaw, Yoder, Schmelzer, and Lang. And Jason, why don't you give us a heads up on what's going on in Sacramento in just terms of the overall landscape for lobbying?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for giving me some time today. I'm from California, so I talk slower than people from New York. So you'll have no problem keeping up with me. I think, and thank you, Julie, for covering so much so fast. It makes my job remarkably easy. I think from an advocacy perspective, I think, if a lot of you are obviously from down south, you're probably wondering, how can I engage with the legislature in a way that's meaningful and really try to get on the issues that we care about. And so things have changed, obviously, from an advocacy perspective. A lot of the time I would be in a suit. My head would be cleaner shaved, probably. I'd be trimmed up a little bit, and I'd be across the street talking to actual human beings, which seems a million miles away from now. And also Julie would be here. She would be holding convenings. You would have arts folks from around the state coming to Sacramento, talking to legislators. You would have days where maybe hundreds of you came and we had people speaking on the steps of the Capitol, and you just can't do those things right now. So how do we make the legislature kind of understand from your perspective what's going on? So there's a few things. One, I would say, understand your audience, understand that the legislature, for all that we kind of put on them as individuals, they're just normal people. They're worried about going to work and potentially getting sick and doing all of the things I think that everybody is worried about. So give them a little room for being, human beings in 2020. So that's a thing. And so the question becomes, how do you reach them? And from a non-lobbyist perspective, this is maybe even the best case scenario. I think my job gets substantially harder. I think your job actually gets a little bit easier. And the reason that I say that is because when there's fewer people like me running around the building, distracting legislators, doing all the things that I do professionally, it makes more time and more energy for them to focus on the district. So this is a period of time where your voice coming out of the district really matters. And how you kind of communicate to legislators, tell them what's going on in the district, give them real life examples, right? Julie and I can run around talking all we want about the impact of the arts, about the combination of COVID and AB5 and some of the other things that have happened to disrupt the sector. But when they hear from people in the district, that's when, especially in times like this, it really matters. And the reason we need those voices from the district is when it comes to Sacramento, they're really focused on a couple of key issues right now. One, obviously, the COVID response. Two is wildfires, and three is homelessness. And if you're not in one of those three categories, you're probably having a pretty tough time. There's some things that may be tangentially related to those items, but that's really where the legislature is putting their effort. And then the other thing, obviously from an arts perspective, we care a lot about state funding for the arts. And if you go back just a few years, the state of California was only putting $1 million worth of general fund support into community arts programs. We've done some good work over the last several years. We've gotten that up to $25-ish million in ongoing funding, but with tax receipts, both on the state and local level being down so low, I think we might be in a defensive posture going forward. So again, your voice is coming from the district, talking about the importance of these programs, the importance of the arts in people's lives. It's going to be more important now, I think, than ever. And if I'm watching Jade's clock correctly, I'm probably winding right down to the end of my time. So I'll be done. Thanks.
So next up is Kristen Sakota.
Hi, good morning, everybody. So great to be here. And thank you to Julie and Gustavo for having me. Happy to be here. So I'm Kristen Sakota. For those who I don't know, I serve as the director of the Los Angeles County Department of Arts and Culture. Our mission is to advance arts, culture, and creativity throughout Los Angeles County, which includes about 88 different cities and more than 100 unincorporated areas. As many of you know, we existed as the LA County Arts Commission for about 70 years and just concluded our inaugural year as an official department of the county. So seating the arts firmly, figuratively, and literally around the table of government leadership. And that was really a critical point in the road forward. So I like to also call us a 70-year startup. I did spend more than 20 years in New York, including at the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs. So the fast-speaking attorney and performer in me may turn that part on to try to hit these 5 minutes. Okay. So, I continue to reflect on this moment, as so many of us have been, with the COVID-19 health pandemic, an ensuing economic crisis, and really a crisis of systemic inequity and structural racism. And these moments as both a reckoning as well as an opportunity. I am absolutely a believer in the sense that you should never let a crisis go to waste. I also see that this is a moment we all really see that there is no returning back to normal. Instead, this is about charting new ways forward and rectifying so many of the systemic issues that have already even been raised, whether that is thinking about things in a different way so that we say, now what do we want? We want funding for the arts. Of course, we want to increase funding for the arts. We want to diversify funding for the arts. And we want to ensure that the arts are a core part of relief and recovery efforts, regardless of the sector they come in, regardless of the level that they come in, that the arts are a critical part of both relief efforts and recovery, workforce recovery, recovering our communities, and recovering the economy going forward. We also want equity. And we want to acknowledge, embrace, and take those meaningful steps forward to continue to push on equity, and in particular racial equity. And sustainable structures. AB 5 was a critical issue we were already talking about the day I learned that COVID was about to change all of our lives. We were having a presentation on that moment. But so many of our leaders don't have benefits, don't commit their whole lives to this work. And so what are the sustainable things for both creative workers and for our field, new virtual platforms and the above, and so many others of those issues. So I wanted to share a couple of things that we're doing. The Department of Arts and Culture, advancing cultural equity and inclusion is really become foundational and central to our work. In addition to leading the LA County Cultural Equity and Inclusion Initiative, so many on this call were integral and continue to be integral to making that work happen. We're really looking at cultural equity as centered in all that we do. And so that includes increasing equity in our grants, repurposing justice dollars, looking at arts education as a social justice issue, and just recently the Board of Supervisors adopting the countywide cultural policy. I want to say a couple of words right now about advocacy. So I do a lot of what I call inside advocacy, because from where I sit, I also have to advocate for the arts. I have to advocate for my budget. I have to try to get things on the agenda. And that is really sort of a complementary role advocating for the arts from my seat as it is to any of you. And so in this work, there's a lot that we are doing internal to the department as well as in the county, sitting on Americans for the Arts has a national kind of brain trust that's been happening around recovery frameworks and advocacy. In that sense, we advocate also through the county for the arts at both the local, state, and federal levels. I also want to note a couple of additional things happening in the county. Supervisor Ridley Thomas just recently put forward, and the board unanimously approved, a new motion to adopt an anti-racist policy agenda. That piece is going to change everything and really help situate what is increasingly clear, that we have to have cultural equity and we have to intentionally talk about racial equity. And so bringing that and anti-racism clearly forward is something we're looking ahead to. I also want to note, I had the privilege of participating on the LA County's Economic Resiliency Task Force. We advocated for arts because we saw what happened at the state. We saw that there wasn't anybody representing the arts, and we were so thankful that they did. And it was Tim Dang, who many of you know. He was the leader, and then he worked with a work group that I was on, that Danielle was on, that others were on. Those recommendations are still live, and they are still out there, and they are still meaningful. Anything from workforce recovery to adopting additional CEII recommendations to having an emergency framework to officially passing the public art and private development ordinance so that the county can have parity with other cities that have a public art and private development framework, as well as things like a CETA or WPA inspired piece of work. Little point just about what's ahead before I close out my time. How have I hit my 5 minutes already? I didn't look at the clock. Am I good? Oh, is she giving me a wave? Yeah, okay. So let me just point to a couple of things coming down the pike. So looking ahead, there are many ways to get engaged, from funding to ensuring the arts are a vital part of recovery and relief efforts, to arts education. This fall, we'll be bringing forward the new regional blueprint for arts education. So arts education as a social justice issue, to navigating health protocols and reopening and imagining new needs like virtual platforms and the work we've been able to do with Danielle and others at KCET to better amplify our voices. So I encourage everybody to stay informed. You can follow our website. We've got resources on our website, a new digital resource center, and follow us on social. I also encourage everyone to stay informed with what your electeds do around the arts. Board of Supervisors is the county level. And then of course, there are all the different cities and their officials, as well as state and federal. And we're grateful to be partners of the state. And we're grateful to the Board of Supervisors pushing forward so much work, things on the agenda all the time. So keep that up. And on August 19th, we have a forum as well that we are going to be sharing out more information for. Thanks. Happy to be here.
Way to go. All right, Danielle, you're up. unmute.
Hey everyone, it's great to see so many folks that I have served in in our various trenches for many, many years as an artist, as a arts administrator, as an advocate, now as the general manager for the City of Los Angeles Department of Cultural Affairs. And I always kind of separate the title from the person because I am serving in this role. I am not the role, but we do embody all of our roles. So I come to you through that lens. I want to just give a couple shout outs. I see that Terrence McFarlane is on the call. I also see Michael Alexander. And I think those are the two original board members of Arts for LA that have been and kind of founded Arts for LA back in 2006. Really was in response to cultural affairs once again being almost defunded in 2004, and then immediately after that, the California Arts Council. So I want to just give a shout out to Californians for the Arts, Victoria, Julie, and all of you guys for leading the charge at the state level, intersecting at the federal level, and then, you know, really connecting and making sure we've got alignment at the state and throughout the state, at the county and at the city level. So a couple of things that are happening in the city of Los Angeles. Many of you know, in 2004, the city of Los Angeles actually lost its, the Cultural Affairs Department lost its second source of funding, which essentially was the general fund. So we became solely reliant on transit and occupancy tax, which is hotel bed tax. That tax was kind of served as our primary funds for operating, you know, multiple community art centers throughout the city, a grants program, administration and marketing. Public art is pretty much funded solely through the Percent for Art program. As of last year we received about 17.9. We finally kind of hit the crest of restoring baseline staffing from the Great Recession. This year we took a $1.4 million hit. And I am working hard, as Kristen said, working the inside advocacy strategy to shore up resources for community arts and for grant making, which are really the two kind of most critical components of our operations. So we, you know, are running as fast as possible to get our grant contracts out, make sure that we can stave off layoffs, and then figure out how we can reopen community art centers without actually having the public be able to come in. And I will always preface employee safety first and foremost. And the department has about 65 full-time employees. And what many people don't realize is we have over 200 as needed part-time. Most folks are teaching artists. And so we employ one of the largest teaching artist corps in the state at the moment. It's a powerful moment of pride, but many of our teaching artists and many of our staff are actually on disaster service worker deployments right now. So let's not forget, we are actually on the front lines. I submitted, and many of you, Kristen, made mention to this, but the oh, I just got to wrap up. So let me just hit these notes really quickly because these are really important. We are trying hard right now to make the case for CARES Act money, primarily for the grants fund. We are making the case for the recalibration of LAPD dollars to go into our community arts programming. We're also advocating, as well as we did last year, for a new cultural master plan and actually a comprehensive new cultural policy framework for the city of Los Angeles that centers around equity. We currently have a hiring freeze, we have a contract freeze, and we have new mandates from the mayor. So as you can tell, we're juggling like crazy. And the last thing I will say is this, is that you are absolutely right that, Kristen, that this is a moment of reimagination. The new normal is actually not yet been created. There is no question that culture and arts and the voices of our artists and our cultural practitioners are going to carry us through this moment. But I don't have a whole lot of confidence that we're going to be able to weather the storm without being unscathed. And I think we really need to figure out what that means and what is the new, what's the new North Star that we need to be working towards. So that's my 5-minute, 32-second.
Way to go. You amazing. So impressive. Gustavo.
Thank you so much, Danielle, Kristen, to all of the speakers really for sharing sharing the policy landscape from your perspectives, from your respective lenses. I forgot to share this at the top of the presentation, but this webinar is being recorded. We want to make sure that this is something that we can pass along afterwards. So here's a quick little update for you all from Arts for LA's perspective. I want to share just a few actions that Arts for LA took since March 13th in partnership with you. So on March 20th, which was 7 days after the Safer at Home directive, we launched a Creativity in Crises campaign, calling for leaders of philanthropy to pool their funds for relief and recovery funds, calling for government to ensure that they're including the arts and culture and CARES Act funding, flexibility around funding, and many other things. But a couple of quick actions that I want to highlight from you. On the county side, we advocated as a community to ensure that we had representation on that county's, LA County's Economic Resiliency Task Force, something that Kristen Sakota mentioned. For when the cultural policy was up for vote, you all submitted about 300 letters in support of that cultural policy and made a gigantic push to ensure that the supervisors were hearing from the community. We advocated with you all to ensure that the LA County Department of Arts and Culture's Arts Internship Program was being fully funded, and so thank you for your work on that. And we also advocated for $25 million of the county CARES Act money to go to the arts. So we appreciate all the actions that you took there. On the city side, we've worked closely to ensure that we are protecting that TOT tax, the hotel and bed tax that Danielle mentioned, by ensuring that we were advocating to eliminate a clause that would have made that money that would have created more fluctuations for that money source for the DCA. And we were effective in eliminating Exhibition H. I also want to share with you on the school district side, because as you all know, school districts right now are looking at budgets and making deep cuts to budgets. And of course, arts education is on the chopping block. And so we have led monthly meetings since March to ensure that we are organizing our community with a toolkit of resources to defend arts education budgets across LA County. And most recently, Burbank Unified School District notified us that as a result of your advocacy, they were able to keep their arts education coordinator on staff to ensure that Burbank can continue to pioneer work in arts ed. And so I just want to share with you, to all of our arts leaders on this call, on this webinar, that we recognize that this is an incredibly difficult time in this region's history. And we want you to know that every one of the speakers here are in service to you as advocacy organizations designed to really defend and promote new visions for arts and culture. And so at this moment, I am going to attempt to do a screen share to share with you what you can do today. And bear with me. Can you all see this? Yeah.
Yes.
So there are really three things today that Arts for LA wants to ensure that we that you take action on this with us. There are three things. Today, you can take action for arts education. As I mentioned to you, if you log on to our site and go to the Take Action page, there's a whole resource that's been created so that you can defend arts education budgets in your school districts. Kristen Sakota also mentioned that, well, actually tomorrow, there's a big vote that's happening with the Board of County Supervisors around the organizational grant program. This is the organizational grant program, I believe funds 200 plus, is it 200 or 400?
Hey, it's more than 400. We're up to about 430 arts organizations who receive 2-year grants of operating grants, and it grows every year. So that motion, yeah, on the board tomorrow.
That is on for vote tomorrow. That motion is up for vote tomorrow. Again, if you go to our Take Action page, you can quickly take action in support of this motion. What this motion will do is increase the organizational grant program budget by 1.2 million over the next 3 years for a total of 3.6 million over the next 3 years. It will also include $200,000 in budget for staffing to maintain the increase in the program also. So those are, if you go to, again, to our Take Action page, you can quickly take action in support of arts education, in support of the OGP program. I invite you to attend our Voting for the Arts program, which is scheduled on August 12th. This event will feature LA Controller Ron Galperin, and will be a really excellent opportunity for our community to hear from a leader on the city side. And lastly, I want to, and I believe that you should have received, there should be links to the Take Actions dropped into the chat that if you want to take action today on the 2 pieces I shared with you. Lastly, State of the Arts. State of the Arts is our annual conference. I want to preview with all of our community here that State of the Arts will happen on October 16th. During the month of September, Arts for LA will lead a series of community strategy sessions. These are 4 different strategy sessions on our 4 key topic areas of affordable space, creative jobs, equitable arts education, and funding. And so we invite you to be a part of those conversations. So that is my quick update. At this moment, we are going to actually shift gears to the community listening portion of the program. And to start that off, or to kick that off, I'm going to ask our amazing Jade Alyssa to launch a quick poll to help get us started. And if you could, these are 2 quick questions for you all to get a sense of both who's in the room and to get a sense for what the biggest challenges for you are in this moment. And so please fill this out if you can. This will give us real-time information.
Thanks. And Gustavo, do you want to stop sharing your screen if you would, so we can start seeing folks again? And thanks to everybody for starting to fill this out. It looks like it's happening, so we appreciate that. And again, what we want to transition to now as we're waiting for the results is really getting into the conversation part. There are 141 of you on this call today, and bear with us as we try to navigate having a conversation with 140 people virtually. But we really want to make an effort to make this happen. So we ask that you, raise your hand as a way to let us know that you want to either ask a question, make a comment, tell us what's happening for you right now that you look to both state and federal for direction in terms of new policies that need to be made or resources that you feel need to be allocated, or how are you positioning arts and culture right now to be in service to both public health in the most immediate ways and to rebuilding California on the longer term. That's a lot of the work that we're doing in terms of letting lawmakers know that we need to be a part of the solution, both immediately in service to public health as well as longer term, looking at arts integration versus arts separation, which is so much of what I think you guys have done so well in Los Angeles and can serve as a model. And I can tell you, I took Tim's package and of what you guys created on the task force. He and I have been talking. I've shared with him what we've been doing at the state level in terms of jobs creation. There's a lot of similarity. This is happening all over the state. These sort of WPAs for the 21st century are happening in cities and counties across California right now, trying to create jobs, which is so essential, but also to see us in multiple departments and to see us and recognize that artists are workers and artists are essential workers. And I think this is a big shift that we're trying to help make happen. So I think we've gotten a lot of the results. Jade, Alyssa, I think there's 177% have voted. So we're getting close to that. And I know we want to jump out of that into what is the conversation. So should we wrap that up now? Okay, for those of you who are in the arts, which is everyone on this call, that was what we call filler, right? So let's see, where are we now? She's going to end the poll so we can get those results. Maybe that'll help us to understand. So it looks like who's here? Thank you. Who's here? So it's pretty much 52%, half are people who are working in arts administration and for nonprofit arts organizations. 30% of you are arts educators. And I hope you're also following what Create California and California Alliance for Arts Education or arts educators are doing. Almost 20% of you are performing artists, welcome. And commercial arts organization, we have 3%, and executive level, 27%, and 10% of you are board members. And some of the challenges you're experiencing: canceled programs. Looks like lack of funding or lost revenue is number one, which is of course related to the canceled programs. Providing services to constituents, that sort of pivot, reimagining, adapting what we need to do right now. 21%, the biggest challenge is unemployment. 11% is rent, healthcare, some of the things that we know that we need to be working on and protecting for our sector in particular. 68%, according to Americans for the Arts, of artists and cultural workers are unemployed at the moment nationally. And focus, that's the one I added that one into the poll, 27% for focus. So Gustavo, I want to see if there's any, Jade, Alicia, do we have any hands raised? Does anyone, we want to stop talking and start listening now. So does anyone have a hand to raise, a comment to make, something to add? You want to add it into the chat? Pat Loeb, do you want to talk about AB5? I see you made a comment. Anybody else? I know this is Los Angeles. I know there's some opinions in this crowd. I know there's the comments to be made. Looks like Benita wants to make a comment. Go ahead, Benita.
Hi there, all. I run a modern dance company that has been in Los Angeles for about 30 years. We're having our 40th, we hope to have our 40th anniversary in 2021 if we can. We're very much dedicated to live performance, which of course is a great challenge right at this point in time. But the biggest challenge we're facing is we're waiting to be able to rehearse, to go into venues, even if we have to minimize the number of participants, take any kind of safety measures. We're hoping for strategies where we can get into venues earlier rather than just facing close down of venues. And I understand that, of course, the health situation is going to control that, and that's, every day changing. But that for us is one of the biggest challenges. We can't rehearse safely right now, and we can't even consider having performances. Everybody's going online, and that can work to an extent, but when your work is very much focused on encouraging people to see live performance, doing virtual performance is, it's just kind of cold. But anyway, so I hope I explained that.
Thank you, Benita. Definitely. I think that's, the reopening guidelines. How do we get people back into venues, even if it's limited? Definitely something we're talking to. We're also talking to labor unions about, and then bringing that forward to the administration. I think Kathleen Gallegos was next. Kathleen from the one of our California Arts Council members.
Right, and I just wanted to bring a real brief update. The California Arts Council is changing our grants, and we will be focusing on two areas. One area is operational support, because we know that arts organizations need the help in running and keeping the doors open when they have a brick and mortar. The other area will be monies for artists. I know that that Julie, you spoke about CCI receiving some money from California Arts Council. That was COVID money that's earmarked for very vulnerable communities of color. And the same with our artist grants that will be coming out. We're trying to focus on the very vulnerable in our communities throughout California. So that's with the California Arts Council. As far as being a small nonprofit, I heard on the news this morning that medical people who have been sick and forced to go into a hospital for treatment, they're being hit with surprise medical bills. And then it hit me that so many of us in our sector are nonprofit, small business, independent contractors. We don't have medical insurance. So I was just wondering, is Californians for the Art, is the county trying to help this situation, trying to help artists figure out that whole issue in front of us, which if you get sick, what's going to happen? How are you going to pay your bills on top of everything else? That was my
Thank
question.
you, Kathleen. That is duly noted. I'm going to keep letting people comment instead of having us respond directly to those things, but we really just want to hear that, and definitely access to healthcare is something absolutely critical right now. Ann Patel, you're up next. Ann, if you're trying to speak, you're still muted, so give you another second here. All right. Okay, so I'm going to go on to Deidre. Marlo?
Oh, actually, before we get to the next person, Anne wrote in the chat. They wrote, any hope to change AB 5?
AB 5 is continuing to be something big legislation that we work on. Right now, there's AB 2257, which Assemblymember Gonzalez has brought forward. It actually has an urgency clause. It was negotiated in a lot with AFM, musicians. There's a lot of exemptions in it for certain types of musicians in certain types of situations. There's still the issue for small budget arts organizations being able to afford to comply with the law, and that is something we will continue to address. With the shortened legislative session for the state because of COVID, it doesn't look like much more will be able to be realistically negotiated. I don't know if Jason's still on the call, but what we are looking at is continuing. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes in addressing that particular issue. So it's going to be going on for years. It is not over. I don't see AB 5 going away. I don't see Dynamics decision going away, but I do think that we'll continue to see exemptions and new legislation to address that. Thank you. Deirdre, Marlo?
Yeah, I am a teaching artist, and I know a lot of small nonprofits do teaching artist work in LAUSD. And I was wondering what kind of conversations are being had with people in control, people in the know at LAUSD or the school board to emphasize the fact that attendance has gone down dramatically during online schooling, and insisting that programming or scheduling include the arts will improve attendance.
I know that is a lot of what Create California is working on in terms of their excellent messaging that they do. Gustavo, did you have anything you want to add to that as well?
No, I think, Deirdre, that is a great question. And, we have been following closely what's happening at LAUSD and have read the acute challenge that particularly students of color and students living in under-resourced communities are experiencing as related to distance learning. Arts for LA has advocated to ensure that the state is lending resources to ensure folks have the equipment to be able to do it. As I mentioned, you know, as conversations continue to happen at the different school district levels, we're trying to provide the resources for folks to really be strong advocates at that local district level and reach out to their local school board members and initiate these conversations at the local level. I think that's really, really important. If you go online, you can to our website, you can find the toolkit of resources. And our entire voting for the arts advocacy push is really focused on ensuring that, you know, there are some big school board races that will be taking place in November also. So we as a community of arts voters need to make it really clear that we're watching these races and that we are arts voters. And so that's an important component of this work too. And I also just want to shout out Create California, Pat Wayne, and California Alliance for Arts Education, who are just absolutely incredible partners in this work and have a ton of resources available too.
Thank you. Sarah, I know you, Sarah, but I don't know how to say your last name. Daladian?
Sarah Daleiden, thank you.
Daleiden, sorry, Sarah. Hey, how are you?
Cool. Thank you, Julie and Gustavo and Kristen and Danielle. It's really nice to hear from all of you as our regional and state leaders. It's comforting, actually, today. I just want to offer a couple of really quick wishes, things that are on my mind. And I'm an artist and facilitator who focuses on civic engagement and land use. And my primary base is in downtown Los Angeles, but I'm from the region around Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So I also work there on advocacy and market development. And so some of my thoughts are overlapping with what I'm working on with Arts Wisconsin. It's a sister org to Californians for the Arts that's in Wisconsin. So for me, the WPA version I'm really interested in is how to get artists embedded into government, into decision-making roles, influencing roles. You know, I've been an advisor with LA County's Creative Strategist program. I think it's a fantastic model to start with. Something like that, I think it's a accepted form for how to employ artists right now, but you know, artists are great communicators and power brokers. I just think can be helpful to some of this recovery decision making. And then a second thing for me is I appreciate what Kathleen said about California Arts Council, rethinking funding. I'm still interested in where there can be direct funding to artists. Center for Cultural Innovation has always been a huge resource that way, but I do think the fact that like the NEA funding went to arts nonprofits was helpful at one level, but just still didn't deal with a lot of the direct needs that are there in the for-profit sector for small businesses. And I know the PPP program and some of the other stuff is designed for that too, but I think something directed to the creative industries would be really helpful. And then my last point would be, I just think it's such a fantastic time to build muscle. You know, I love that you're doing these regional convenings. I'm always wanting like a cohort in my region to just work on advocacy work, you know, like smaller groups might be helpful too. And this is just a model we've been working on with Arts Wisconsin, but just to do some online arts days together. I mean, it's just a time when we could get online and do shout outs to each other in concentrated ways as a way of showing that our sector exists. And again, that could be regional or it could be statewide. So I just think, I always wondered, Julie, if there's room, I say this to Ann Katz at Arts Wisconsin too, for you know, your scale of arts advocacy groups, the statewide groups could get together and put in a proposal to NEA. Because I still think like you getting funding to help us build our advocacy muscle right now, to me could be a good use of some of the NEA support. So thank you for all my ideas.
Sarah, I would love that. We can talk about that offline, but in terms of statewide, I just want you to know we are working on that statewide convening. And we're really excited because the governor's task force wants to engage in that as well. So you will see that, and that is important for us to be heard as they're determining how to reopen and rebuild California. I wanted to Gloria Oster invite to the conversation.
Yeah, this is Alma speaking with Gloria. I'm not sure she's still on the call. Gloria, are you here? She had to sign out shortly. Anyway, she's our new Southern California director. I wanted to introduce her to all of you. I'm Alma Robinson. I'm the executive director of California Lawyers for the Arts, and she just invited me to this call about 5 minutes ago before it started. So I'm really happy to be with you all today. And I wanted to mention a couple things that we're working on. We are part of a national group of Lawyers for the Arts organizations that is seeking congressional and senatorial support for expanding PUA funding so that it includes more freelance and gig workers. Because as you know, many of them got very small unemployment compensation because they might have had a small W-2 in their mix of employment. So that's also on the plate in Congress. And if anybody wants to reach out to Congress people that you're in touch with regionally in your counties, that would be terrific. And I can put Gloria's email in the chat so that she can send you a sample letter to send. Now, that's the first thing I wanted to mention, but I also wanted to share a few things very quickly from Arts and Corrections, from the justice space that many of us are involved in as well. There is a proposition on the November ballot to allow people who are on parole to vote. This is Prop 17. If you can put this into the advocacy for the November election, in whatever form you're doing it, candidates' nights, voter education, it's really important, and it will mean a great deal to our allies in the justice field, and especially to returned citizens. We're working very hard on this, and it's not easy to get a referendum passed by California voters, so we need a lot of support. Planting the seed for a big national effort to amend the 13th Amendment. You will hear more about this later, but I just wanted to throw it out there because there has been some reaction nationally, and we think we have a good shot at this in connection with Black Lives Matter and other movements to tear down Confederate monuments. Very briefly, this is an amendment that abolished slavery in 1865 with the exception of people who are convicted of a crime. It is an unfortunate legacy of the Confederacy, of the compromise with Confederate states. And I think in this environment, we should be working on this. So I'd love to work with anybody who's interested. Please email me. I'll put my email in the chat as well as Gloria's. And then on the topic of returned citizens, we solicited recommendations, which we sent to the governor's office as a collective effort from 21 arts organizations that have been working in the field through arts and corrections programs that are funded by the State Arts Council. We sent recommendations for people that artists thought had successfully rehabilitated through the arts for expedited release in alignment with the governor's stated intention to release 8,000 people by the end of August, I believe. And they keep moving the goalposts down the road a little bit. But we talked to the governor's office last week. They were very interested in our recommendations. There's more work to be done. But as people come out, we would like to develop employment for them. So we also asked arts organizations how many would be interested and could employ them if they had the subsidy to do this. So what I want to ask Danielle and our lobbyists in Danielle and Kristen and Julie and our lobbyists to do is, if you see money coming down the pipe for reentry programs, for employment for people who are formerly incarcerated, please let us help you direct those funds to the organizations that can employ them. Hopefully 20 bucks an hour or part-time to help them get on their feet. Otherwise, they're candidates for recidivism, and we don't want that. So we want to protect the people that we are encouraging the governor to release. So that's it from the justice space. Thank you.
Alma, you're such a force, and thank you for bringing all of that up. And it is definitely, we need to talk more.
Thank you. Thanks.
Joanne Webb, you're up next.
And I'll be brief. I'm Joanne Webb. I'm the director of the Career Center at the Actors Fund, and we're actually doing a symposium on Saturday called the Virtual Creative Classroom. And actually, Wayne Cook, who many of you know, will be our keynote speaker. And the whole idea is to really bring things together about what it's like teaching virtually, because it's a whole different world. And we do get a grant through Sony. This is the 5th year in a row to do this program. And the symposium is a way to bring people together. So please feel free to come. I put a link up on the chat, so it's there. But I also want to mention what other kind of work is going to be done to be able to get people caught up on how to teach virtually, because this is something that's going to be with us for a while. And I know even at the Actors Fund with our workshops and everything, we've had to do particular training to know how to keep people, connected with this process. And I'm thinking of it for arts education. I'm thinking for teachers in general. Is there something happening in terms of making sure people are at their best in teaching in this particular way?
Thank you so much. All right, next up we have Eugene Hutchins.
Hi, my question is that now with the passing of the county cultural policy, which is such an extraordinary document, what are the next steps in terms of how that's going to be integrated with the other county departments of bringing arts and culture more integrated? How will that particularly impact unincorporated areas as well that are particularly underserved?
Hi, Jill, want me to reply?
Sure,
okay.
Just as quickly as possible.
Okay, the short story then is that this is really a roadmap for the way forward. In my friend's parlance, we sort of catapulted up so that we could talk about not only our department, but really at a county level, the Board of Supervisors saying arts and culture matters, that we need to center cultural equity, especially for historically marginalized and underserved communities. And so this lays the roadmap forward in 3 key areas: investing in cultural infrastructure, including supporting all of your organizations and expanding equity investments. 2, exactly as you're talking about, how do we work with other county departments? We've already been doing it. We will continue to do it more across sectors. And 3rd, really looking at the role of the arts in belonging and greater coordination in the whole field. County culturals, philanthropy, local arts agencies. We are putting together plans for implementation now, and we have to report back to the board in a few months on that. So thank you so much for your interest. I really look at this as both picking up and building on all the work we've already been doing and that you all have already been doing in the region to date, starting immediately, and then taking this as a long view of where do we want to see ourselves between here and the future, 2030. Thank you.
Fantastic. Joshua Lamont.
Hello, I just kind of piggybacking off of that. How important of a statement are we making of the arts being linked to the public well-being and the public's mental health?
I can just say one quick thing, and then you all have your own whole artists' second responders piece and campaign. But I'll just pick up in the cultural policy, there's a whole second section that is around advancing the arts across sectors that is absolutely about recognizing what is already true, which is that arts and culture is critical for the well-being, not only of each of us as individuals, but evidence shows even at a community level. The higher the amount of cultural resources in a low-income community, the better outcomes are in public safety, in health, like diabetes, obesity, well-being, and educational attainment. So we need to make that message stronger, clearer together. And then we're going to look to partner with our county departments and link arts and culture into justice reform plans, which we're doing, into creative aging plans, which we're doing, into community development, transportation, you name it, so that we can really support and lift you all up.
And second to that,
the city as well, and the city as well.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And the city as well.
That's for Danielle can speak to that. I know she's a believer in that. Our work absolutely goes sort of throughout the entire county. So it includes all of the cities, but I know Danielle is also leading the work that is more city specific to Los Angeles.
And thank you also, Joshua, for that excellent question. I just want to flag that at this point, we have about 8 or so minutes left for the session. And so I want to make sure that we get our last set of questions.
And Gustavo, I'd love just to respond to the last question. I would say this. I think City Council needs to hear from folks about the important role that arts and culture plays in building healthy communities, in building a 21st century workforce, in advancing racial equity and social justice. I think that there are so many voices inside City Hall right now, but I don't know if there is a cacophony of voices in and around how we truly advance social emotional well-being and economic justice through creativity and through culture. So I think that that's something that I would just leave. We're pushing on the inside, but I think the surgical and loud and positive voices around this is really essential. It can't be underestimated, the power of democracy and the power of advocates voicing where they want their resources to go, as we saw with the people's budget.
Right on. I second all of that, and just that we've developed a campaign around artists are second responders, which is really very much in line with artists being essential to what is happening not only right now, but always in our communities, and uplifting and telling those stories and bringing that to both, to state government and also to the federal government, and working on those kind of jobs creation programs. But Eve Rappaport, I think you were up next, and then we've got a couple, I think 3 more, Monica, Michael Alexander, then Karen, and then I think we're gonna wrap it up so we can honor the time.
Okay, great, thank you very much. Hi, I'm Eve Rappaport. I'm the Cultural Services Manager in the City of Torrance. And we're a local arts agency essentially, and our programs are a little bit different. We don't really have grantees so much as we actually run a contemporary art museum and a theater company. And then we have a facility where we have hundreds and hundreds of classes from, ceramics to Pilates to ballet. And the problem that we're having in Torrance, and I think that people are sort of talking around, is it's so great to get content on the web and everybody wants to keep engaged. How do you monetize it? There's so much competition for free content. We're just finding nobody's really willing to pay for anything. And this isn't over, and who knows what the future is going to bring. This is going on for a while, and I'm lucky that I work for a government agency. We've had some cuts. It hasn't been as bad, certainly, as nonprofits, but nobody can keep doing this forever. And even Joanne Webb, you were talking about your training program on Saturday, which sounds wonderful. I don't, is there a component about how to charge for things, how to monetize it? Because teaching artists, you guys are small businesses, nobody's going to keep being able to do this. So that was my comment, and also certainly about planning for the future. It's very, very difficult at this point to even plan, past January, because who knows? All my programs for the summer have been canceled. We're really hesitant to do anything but online in fall. So it's just, everybody knows it's a hard time right now. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Monica Hart?
Hi, yeah, so my name is Monica Hart and I'm with the Actors Gang. I'm also working with the Arts for LA Innovators program. And I was really just commenting that it would be possibly really helpful for small not-for-profits if there was a professional employers organization for nonprofit arts organizations in California to deal with all insurance. So it would help with the, not just the business insurance side of things, but also the health insurance, which I think is a huge issue right now, people needing health insurance and organizations being able to still contribute a large percentage to people's health insurance. So if anybody is looking at that or interested in that, I certainly am, and I've been sort of researching that in California. I think it'd be really helpful. Thank you.
Excellent, Monica, thank you. Michael Alexander, do you want to mention maybe something along those lines with Cal Nonprofits?
I had to unmute. Michael Alexander, I'm the Director of Public Programming at Caltech, and on the board both of California Arts Advocates and the California Association of Nonprofits. And I have 3 quick points. 1, check out the California Association of Nonprofits. It owns an insurance company. And so if I will also check with them and double check if they're dealing with health insurance. I know they deal with liability, they deal with all other workers' comp type of insurances. I'm not sure if they've got health or not, but I will check with them and somehow we'll report back to you. I want to encourage everybody to keep writing to elected officials. Even our best friends need our communication as ammunition as they talk to their colleagues. So don't shy away from getting in touch with the ones you know are in our pockets as far as being supportive, because they need to hear from us. And there's too many things on their minds at this point anyway. And the last thing is the census. And I'm speaking right now to the community-based organizations to remind people that it's going to have an impact not just on the California arts budget that we get from the National Endowment for the Arts, but the number of votes we get in Congress and a number of other things to make sure that everybody in the state gets counted. And I think there's still a little window of time for us to deal with that. So I encourage community organizations to encourage all of their followers to participate in the census.
Excellent points, Michael. Thank you so much. And we work a lot with Cal Nonprofits, and we will talk to them about the healthcare issue. Karen Desai, just wanted to give you
thank you.
Conversation. Yeah.
Thank you. Karen Desai, International City Theater in Long Beach, California. Lucky to be in a city with a mayor who supports the arts and a strong leader in the Arts Council. And I shout out to the California Arts Council for understanding the importance of operating support. This is our 35th year, and we do main stage productions, and we do lots of education. I have more than 25 years teaching experience at the college, university level. And so education is extremely important to me. But we perform in a space that's got more seats than we use, and it's a professional nonprofit. And I'm just concerned about when it's time to reopen. We looked at an 840-seat theater and figured out how we could use less than 200 to do all the social distancing. I'm just concerned that we'll be in this higher category of numbers before we're allowed to open. That's a big concern. And then arts education, right now we have 6 education programs we're doing, and in the schools and all, and obviously now we're looking at ways to do them virtually, and a real concern about the impact we'll have at that level, especially like our 3rd grade program, which is huge. And another thought I had too is, because I think we all share that importance of arts education, reaching children young and what it does for them as well. And I just wonder how many teachers that teach, especially like in elementary school, and I bring this up because my daughter teaches 3rd grade and has been doing it virtually the past school year and starting up again soon in Santa Ana. And one of the things that she did was she looked at all the museums that you could go on virtually, and she had her little 3rd graders choose a museum and then write a paragraph, because they're 3rd grade, and ask them questions and things like that. But she incorporated the arts in her teaching. And I just wonder how much we're helping teachers understand how they can use the arts in supporting and increasing literacy and language skills at the same time. So that's my point.
Perfect. Thank you, Karen. Danielle?
I just want to say that we are in this for the long haul. I'm reading economic forecasts that we're not going to be seeing signs of recovery until 2023. We really need to think about how do we maintain our existing infrastructure, because we know that when we lose it It will take decades, if ever, to get it back. And we never get it fully back. It just took over 10 years for the California Arts Council to come back below the 2004 levels. The Department of Cultural Affairs never recovered from the 2004 cutting of general fund either. We really need radical reimagination of the role that arts and culture plays in our society and in our communities. And what we need to do together as a sector, as a field, is to keep bringing more colleagues into this frame. That includes our public officials. They are our colleagues. And for you out there, this is going to get harder. More people are going to get this virus. More people are going to die. We have got to really be able to protect those loved ones. We've got to protect ourselves. We've got to protect our communities. And in doing so, I really want you all to be very kind to yourself, be kind to your colleagues, be kind to the people around you. Kindness and reimagination is going to get us through this.
Thank you, Danielle. That was beautifully said. I have one other person, I think is Nina Crow, still with us, who wanted to make a comment, and then we'll go to Gustavo for wrapping up.
Yeah, I am, but gosh, how do you follow that?
Do it.
Do it. All right.
Do it.
I am part of the operating team that manages the Alex Theater, and we're celebrating our 95th birthday in September with we're going big with a 12-hour telethon. We're telling our stories, we're having reflections, we're doing great stuff. And I'm wondering, I would love for a part of this conversation to be a part of that telethon, whether it's a long taped conversation that we put into bits and pieces throughout the 12 hours, but people really have to understand and realize the importance. And like you said, just you know, we're going big, we're going radical, and I think it's a time not only for us to raise money, but to make sure the message of the importance of arts and culture and community building is around and people hear it. So that was my comment.
Thanks, Nina. Definitely reach out. I'm sure we can help activate that. And I know Gustavus wants to get us to the wrap up here. It's already 11:20, and before he does, I just want to thank everyone. I've been taking excellent notes, and it's really helped me to listen to this region, the biggest one here in California. And I thank Danielle and Kristen for their amazing leadership. You guys are very, very lucky of who is down there in Los Angeles leading the charge from the inside, and then you got Gustavo from the outside, and you've got all of you activating, and our board members and the state level Californians for the Arts and California Arts Advocates. If you're not on our mailing list, please sign up to get our alerts. We do federal and state, and we also amplify what's going on in the regions across and share a lot of really great content, including both of the articles that Danielle and Kristen each wrote for KCET that you should definitely check out, because I think they really beautifully summarize what they've spoken about today. So Gustavo, to you.
Yeah, so thank you, everybody. We will be following up with an email that captures all of the different action links that we talked about today as a follow-up to this webinar. I want to again thank all of the presenters for all of the insight that they shared. I want to thank you for making us a priority today of your Monday at 10 a.m. and joining us. Again, this will be ongoing regional conversations because we want to build a stronger coalition of arts advocates. So with that, thank you for joining us today, and have a terrific Monday, everyone.
We did it. 140 people in conversation. Woohoo! Well done, everyone. Thanks for being patient with us. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.